we just talked about how there's not much practice time and there's not much time to, get acquainted with a new coach or, certainly in the middle of a season. How about adding somebody like Harden in the middle of I guess at the start of a season? Yeah. And man, has this worked out. Oh. It's really, it's seamless. It feels like he's been playing with Paul George and Kawhi and the rest of this team for years. Yeah. It feels like that, right? Honestly, you watching the game and he fits perfectly into this whole thing. And I'll speak on behalf of a lot of Clipper fans. Like, where's the trap door on this thing? Like, what's happening here? Like, this looks great, and the perfect coach for it too. Like, Ty Lue is pushing every right button. The rotations look great, even when like Zubac is out right now. Amir Coffey is suddenly like dominating when he's out there on the floor every now and then. Yeah. So, what do you think here? It's
first of all, management in all franchises understand this when we're going through the trade deadline, and management I think has a keen understanding of what they have and what they don't have and what they need. I felt that management with the Clippers felt that they needed a more dynamic person in the pick and roll, someone that can also spread the court, and that was James Harden. And that's no disrespect to Russ, who's on the second unit doing a heck of a job. And it's no disrespect to Nick Batum, who got traded, and Robert Covington and Marcus Morris. But they needed something else. Now, within that, too, they also knew that there was a redundancy at the power forward and small forward position with those three I just mentioned. Then now you have Terrence Mann, but you also have Coffey. You also have Paul George and Kawhi.
Norm Powell, too.
And Norm Powell. So what happens is when you make that trade, not only do you bring in a dynamic pick-and-roll player, passer, finisher at the basket, can throw lobs, and can spread the floor, you thin out that roster, and now you have players who understand what their role is, how many minutes they're going to play, when they're going in. Before, you didn't have that, so it was disjointed. Now, as good as management was at identifying what they needed, James Harden had to be on board to play the right way, okay, or it never would work. So at the beginning, when Ty Lue tried to start all four, I think he did it out of respect more than anything else. But it showed that, okay, this is probably not going to work the way it is. But once James got in the lineup, and I said it'd take about 15 games to figure it out. But the thing that James Harden did, he came in and he wanted to facilitate. He wanted to play and pass. He worked with Zubac and Mason Plumlee after shoot-around, after practice on the pick and roll.
Yeah,
and he's still doing it today.
He is.
Okay, and Daniel Tice. Because he wanted to make sure that they knew where the passes were coming from and set it up. So a lot of it had to do with the maturity of James Harden to play a certain way. That allowed everybody else to feel comfortable. And once Paul and Kawhi figured out how to play with James, and now the rotations began to be set, 8 or 9 players, now you saw them take off. And it goes back to management identifying what they want. They thinned out the roster, but then the individual players kind of took a step back a little bit and said, for the betterment of what we really need to do, let's give a little piece to get more.
They look great. They really do. And Harden doesn't have to score 35, 38.
But
by the way, Kawhi is now. But Kawhi suddenly is on
more
occasion.
Efficient, too.
He's unreal. Which this just in. But it really is working particularly well on every possible front. I think they can threaten Denver, don't you?
No question. But here's a challenge, too. Rich, you've been around this. I tell people this all the time. It's as challenging having no talent as it is having a plethora of talent.
Sure.
Because when you have no talent, you got to figure out how to manipulate the situation to be competitive. When you have all this talent, now you got to figure out minutes, egos, and injuries, okay? That's what coaches do during the regular season. Minutes, how to manage minutes, egos, and injuries. Once you get to the playoffs, that's when you dig into the X's and O's.
Yeah, that's when Riley tightens that rotation.
Right. So right. Think about it. Ty Lue, this is what makes him so great. One, his communication. He'll communicate with the star players and they understand it. He did it with LeBron. LeBron at times probably didn't like it, but he respected it, okay? That's how Ty is. Ty puts you in a situation where now you can be successful, okay? But it's always a challenge, okay? How do I get Kawhi shots when he hasn't touched it in a while? How do I get Paul shots? How do I keep Norm here? How do I make sure James is effective in the pick and roll? All these things that the normal fan doesn't think about, all that has to go into why the continuity has finally kind of leveled out. Is you go back to the bench and how they want to communicate, one, with these players, two, allow them to be who they are, but also understand to put them in a position where they can be successful.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.